The 30th edition of the African Mining Indaba gets underway in Cape Town today. The annual event provides a platform for deal-making and discussions on critical mining issues. The theme for this year's event is embracing the power of a positive disruption, a bold new future for African mining. President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to deliver a keynote address at the Indaba. For more on the story now, let's bring in SABC News reporter Katlego. Legodi. Katlego, thank you so much for your time. Indeed, a critical time for the mining industry. And of course, this is a big one. It's 30 years, celebrating or commemorating and meeting at the Mining Indaba. So I would imagine a lot of critical, discussions will be held, particularly as far as collaborations are concerned. Just talk to us about what we can expect.
A very good morning to you, Unati, and to our viewers at home. You're right. 3 decades later, we find ourselves here where the mineral sector is concerned. We see some of those delegates having started to arrive here this morning. We're talking about 10,000 plus of those members that will form part of this particular sitting for the coming 4 days, for those critical discussions. We know very well that collaboration is what they've been preaching for over the years. We'll be talking about investments into this particular sector. We'll be tracking progress in terms of where South Africa is and Africa in terms of these critical minerals, looking of course at the economies of the continent. I know very well that the president will be arriving any time from now to deliver that keynote address, and we know that there are also 2 other heads of states that will be forming part of this particular event, this being Zambia and the Democratic Republic of Congo. But we have some of those emerging miners that are here, women in mining also here, and those stakeholders, companies that are mining companies that are also pushing to form part of this. And I'm going to invite into the conversation this morning Dr. Taufeeq is joining us from the Council of Geoscience, just joining us here, just forming part of this particular process. We know very well that already discussions are underway, more or less networking has already started, and we know very well that the president will be coming through at a time when you as the council have been working around just the ground and trying by all means to try to look at the minerals base and how South Africa can capitalize on that. Welcome to the SABC, Dr. Taufeeq.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm glad to be with you.
Let us in on the work that has been underway. We know very well that you're expecting to also form part of those discussions here today, looking at how the council has been doing the work on the ground, working with communities. Very, very important.
Thank you for that. So as you know, we've been having this mining indaba for many years, for many decades actually. It's been investing in African Mining Indaba, so it's been called. And what we've seen with the mining industry is that there's been a change. There's a change from what we call traditional minerals to what is now being deemed as critical minerals. And the notion of critical minerals is somewhat different from what we have known before, in that it's more independent of an institution. It's all about what is most important and critical for a democracy, number one, and the development of an industry. So therefore, we look at now critical minerals in the sense of what is the most important for Africa's development. How can Africa really harness and get maximum value out of the minerals? So that's what we've been doing. We've been doing some geological research in terms of identifying source regions where we might find these critical minerals, and then also how could these be actually extracted in a sustainable way so that we avoid any type of environmental degradation and we actually make sure we get maximum benefit for community and national development goals.
Are you hoping that these are the discussions that actually will find meaning in this coming 4 days, looking at the fact that communities also don't want to be left behind? And often when we see a mining license being given to some companies, you hear communities crying foul to say that why weren't we consulted and the likes. You were there in the Northern Cape on the ground with members of the community. Are these conversations that you've been having, some of those that you'll take to this particular event here in the 4 days?
No, definitely. I think we've seen over the last couple of years that the social compact has really gone up quite a lot. Previously, it's all been about the bottom line, if you can use that term. How can we extract maximum value in terms of monetary value out of the minerals from the ground and make sure that we can actually beneficiate that in terms of technology and industry. However, we've seen now with the sort of environmental aspects, social aspects, that the people on the ground where the minerals are actually being developed are often left behind. And I think that's been one of our key things that we're going to push for now. As we move into this new industry of so-called critical development. It gives us an opportunity to say, how do we really look at the mining industry? And I think this is truly what we're going to try and show now, that when you find certain geology with minerals on the ground, we cannot forget the communities and also make sure there's a proper sustainable development. South Africa, as an example, is regarded as one of the most unequal countries in the world. And we think there's an opportunity here. As we shift into the so-called critical mineral development, there's a chance to change that narrative, to show it can be done, and then also use this as a marker horizon, for determining how to do this in other parts of the world where they also suffer with these same types of consequences.
We see the theme for this year, just zooming into the disruptors coming into this space. You've mentioned a technology that is going to be very important to ensure that we're not left behind. We move with the times, even where this sector is concerned. Let us in on where we find ourselves as the continent, as South Africa, starting here at home, where these disruptors are concerned. Do we see these mines and some of these companies, tapping into the use of technology so that they can salvage and get the best out of this sector?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Think about mining over the last 100 years. There's been a certain type of mineral base that's been sought after, and there's been a certain method of extracting these minerals. That's the first principle. But then also what the minerals have been used for. We see technology has changed drastically. Everybody has a cell phone, a smartphone, a laptop. And these critical minerals that you need for these equipment is actually found in Africa. And it actually means Africa sits at the base of being the disruptor. Africa itself is actually the disrupting continent, if you want to call it like that, in terms of how we actually extract these minerals, how we develop these minerals, but not only that, how we define technology shift. And therefore, Africa truly is the disruptor. So it's up to us in terms of whether or not do we decide to be part of that disruption, and how do we use that for our development. So that in itself is a disruption to the economy and also the mining economy as it's well known. So yes, we see now in terms of the transition, we're looking at technologies, specifically the technologies that can assist in terms of the development, the social development, the socio-economic development of Africa itself.
Are we seeing those investments and the buy-in into this particular sector that will push in terms of the infrastructure development, for instance, and making sure that at least we are on par with the global standards in terms of what is happening in the mineral sector? Are we seeing those investments thick and fast coming through, drawing from the fact that last year we had an investment conference where minerals and mining sectors, or most of those from the mining sector, also pledged to more or less feed into this particular sector? Are we starting to see those developments from your end?
So one of the problems we've seen with the investment is that people are scared. Companies are scared. And so what we're trying to do is de-risk investment. They are very worried about, if I invest, will I actually get maximum benefits out of my investment? And therefore we're coming along the lines of de-risking exploration and investment through geosciences. So what we're trying to do is we're actually trying to produce high quality geoscience data information that will actually show you when you invest, when you decide to explore in a certain area, you will get maximum benefits, because we can increase the precision of that mineral resource that you're looking for. So therefore what we're now doing is we're trying to really develop a lot of high resolution geological information, and we believe that that is actually the crucial key that's going to really drive the investment. So far from what we've seen, we've been doing this type of data collection for the last 5 years, and we've seen in the last 5 years that people are indeed investing once you can show them that type of data, and you can actually de-risk the exploration to that extent. And keep in mind that data is also very important for the sustainable development. It's not just about mining these days. It's not just about taking the resource out of the ground and leaving a big hole in the ground, but also post-mining, sustainable mining. So you need this type of geoscience data information. And I think with the generation of this data, we are now seeing that people are more viable and happy to start investing into the industry.
Dr. Taufeeq Dhansay, thank you very much, sir, for your time. It's coming through from the Council of Geoscience. You know very well that they too don't want to be left behind. They want to form part of these conversations. They are often on the ground with community members, just hearing on their concerns in terms of the community and the infrastructure, and how then they too would like to benefit from all of these developments from mining communities. I'm going to step out of shot to just show you what is happening behind us. My colleague Tabiso just tracking some of those delegates that have started arriving this morning. We know very well that we have those from the continent, Unati, that are forming part of this particular process. We have even others from outside of South Africa that are here to form part and come through with those collaborations. We'll be seeing different heads of states also arriving here. Security very tight, as you can imagine, that most of those delegates would want to be safeguarded as they push for investments into the mineral sector here in South Africa. And we know that it's 30 years later, they'll also be taking an opportunity here this morning and in the coming days to take stock of where we find ourselves as a sector 30 years later.